What is up, superheroes? Thank you so much for joining me at episode 7 of the Hustle Do a Show. So tell me one thing, do you prefer to feel bloated, low energy, and kind of unfocused all the time? Or do you prefer to feel actually very high in energy, super productive and super focused more than ever? I'm pretty sure you chose the option 2, and if you did, please stick around because this episode is made exactly for you. And we chat about a very hot topic in a fitness and diet nutrition space that is intermittent fasting. There's a lot of information floating around, and today I'm chatting with Dr. Michael Van, who's a well-known expert in intermittent fasting. He also wrote a book called Scientific Approach to Intermittent Fasting, and he's just a great example of practice what you preach. So we covered the topics, we covered the basics in the very beginning. What is intermittent fasting? What are the benefits? We also go a little bit deeper. So, if you already know enough about intermittent fasting, you'll definitely get enough information in here as well. We share a lot of practical tips. So really super value-packed episode. I hope you enjoy it. And if you do, of course, don't forget to subscribe. So let's go straight to the episode number 7. Hi, Michael, and thank you for joining the Hustle Do a Show.
Thanks for having me, man. Really appreciate it.
Awesome. Thanks. Thanks for agreeing, so quickly to chat with us, because this particular topic is actually very, very actual for us, because we are planning in April to do this 21-day intermittent fasting challenge. And particularly me, I'm very, lately interested in the whole, keep the muscle, burn the fat game, which is, every guy's dream, I guess, to be lean and fit, right? So,
absolutely.
Exactly. So really fan of your content and your book, The Scientific Approach to Intermittent Fasting. Anybody who's interested should just go straight to Amazon. I will put the link in the show notes. Awesome. So actually the first question before we move to the intermittent fasting is about sport, right? So you're definitely a very fit guy. What's your favorite exercise or workout,
Favorite exercise, I would say it'd be a combination of, for actually lifting exercises, I would say pull-ups and squats.
Yeah, the basics.
Both of those, really, really basics. And then big fan of sprinting, HIIT style. Right. So high intensity interval training. So yeah. I really will alternate, in the gym, legs, upper body, and then sprinting. Mm-hmm. That's kind of like my cycle of 3 I'll do on a regular basis weekly. And as much as I possible, I'm doing the sprinting on the beach barefoot, so I'm grounding, I'm getting, all those negative ions from the Earth's surface, reducing free radicals in my body. So you're getting a bunch of benefits there, but really just weighted squats. And, I'm getting old, I'm in my 30s now. So I'm not like old, hardcore, I'm not hardcore weightlifter anymore. So I really take my time with form. I take my time, a lot of times I'll do like the Smith machine where it's really guiding me in the squats so I can go as deep as possible, and just, really focusing on just injury prevention, and just so I can, do my job to the fullest extent and really just function at the best I can.
Yeah, I guess which should be done anyway at any age, even if you are, in your 20s and feel invincible, and it could just go, harder and harder every time. But actually having the right form is the way to do it, right?
And that's how I was, in my 20s, going as hard as possible, giving me the recovery, so definitely made some mistakes there, but the important thing is that you learn from the mistakes you make.
It's true. Yeah, awesome. Also, how would you typically introduce yourself? So who are you? Who listeners who, maybe not familiar with you?
Yeah, so I am a doctor first and foremost. I practice chiropractic. Right now, I'm actually kind of in the middle of a really exciting opportunity where we specialize in our clinic that I own. We specialize in regenerative medicine.
Awesome. So
we're doing things like not just like chiropractic and things of that nature to help our bodies, function our best, but we also do a lot of platelet-rich plasma injections, and we also do stem cell therapy. So we're doing different things, and we offer stem cell therapy, whether it's intravenously or in joint-specific injections for regenerating broken down joints. It is extremely effective. It kind of uses your body's natural processes. So I do that. However, one of the coolest things too to do in your own lifestyle in regards to boosting your stem cell function is fasting, which we're going to be talking about. But really, I just, I was always into health and fitness, and I wanted to make people better. And I know you're in Switzerland, but in the US, we consume more prescription drugs than the next 6 countries combined. And we're ranked basically dead last in health among all developed nations. We have one of the highest infant mortality rates. So it's clear that all these interventions, all these drugs, all these surgeries equals less and less health.
Yeah.
And so I wanted to be a part of the solution and not the problem. And so that's why I chose the field of, being a doctor of chiropractic, because we're focusing, just that general mindset of focusing on your body's innate ability to heal itself, without all the extra crap, and so that's really why I chose that. And that's who I am today. Yeah.
Sounds awesome. So definitely drugs are not an answer, right? I mean, in the end, drugs only treat the symptoms, not the underlying problems. And there are so many, other ways to solve that. So I've also, for example, checked your Instagram account, and I've seen that you've been to the cryotherapy. Is that how it's called, right? So yeah. So you have a clinic who's specializing in stem cells, then you're a big fan of fasting, then you also do the cryotherapy. That basically means you're a big fan, and that's just an assumption, big fan of living healthy, living longer, and kind of living in the best shape of your body, right? Or of your health.
Absolutely.
And why do you do that? You always were like this, so.
There's quality of life.
Yeah.
And then there's living longer. And a lot of people, not so much now, but, our life expectancy has been growing. But again, people aren't necessarily living longer, because when people are confined to their house, they can't move, they're basically just confined to all these prescription drugs. That's not living, in my opinion. So you really got to blend those two qualities together. And I find that when I do the cryotherapy or any type of cold thermogenesis, cold showers every single morning without exception, things like heat therapy, activating heat shock proteins, which just help your body in every facet. So I do these little, I hate saying biohacking. It's just such a used term now, but it's just really these different interventions you can do to get the most out of your biology. And really, I do them because it's allowing me to just live better, period, increase brain function, everything. So I can be at my best, no matter whether it's at home life, in work life, social life, whatever it is. I just feel like doing these things on a regular basis, it gets me to where I want to be.
And awesome. I feel very similar. And what I can tell from my own experience is actually once you start, paying attention, making these little changes in your habits, it actually becomes a little bit addictive also, right? Because you see that, oh my goodness, I've made a small change in my diet maybe, or in my routine, or the way I approach little things, and actually it brings benefit, right? So once that you see that benefit, it gets a little bit addictive.
Exactly. You want to, those benefits, basically just fuel the fire even more. Yeah. Wow, doing this gets me this benefit. Well, I want to keep going. And that's my personality, Well, if this gets me this good, and I feel pretty dang good, but I'm still always looking for that next edge, without breaking my philosophy, of course.
Of course,
and basically I just, I want to stay with very high integrity and really promoting a natural, healthy lifestyle. So anything within my philosophy that helps me achieve that, then I'm all for it, and I will experiment with everything. So
even though I really want to go to intermittent fasting right now, but just the final one on this whole process of self-improvement. So how do people start? Like, what would you advise to start? For somebody who's not at the right state and mindset and state of the body as well. How would you advise to start?
So the very first thing you need to do is, no matter what type of lifestyle intervention you do, sorry, that's my dog in the background. Hopefully.
That helps.
The dog stays
helps.
Good behavior. So the very first thing you want to do, no matter what intervention you do, whether it's fasting, whether it's anything, is nothing is a substitute for a shitty diet. I mean, it's so dang important that we really need to clean up what we're eating first. And when you start with that and you clean up the diet, it makes everything else so much easier. So that's really like the prerequisite, is kind of getting the crap out of your diet and getting the good stuff in. That's your number one step. And once you have that foundational premise, you can kind of build on top of that. But if you're doing fasting and you're doing all of this stuff, working out, and you're eating like crap, it's the limits to your benefits are going to be, it's going to be very low. So you want to start with that, eliminate all refined grains, processed carbohydrates, focus more on the healthy fats, and that's already going to get your body's metabolism kind of shifting towards fat oxidation or fat burning. And so once you kind of start with that premise, it's not going to get you into things like ketosis. I'm sure we'll go into all that kind of stuff later, but it's just a foundational premise that's going to start getting your body a little bit clean, giving your body the raw nutrients it needs to function properly, and then you can go from there, right? Then we can go and think about doing the other things like fasting, but there's no substitute for a crappy diet, absolutely. So that would be the first and foremost thing you'd want to do.
Gotcha. Yeah, definitely makes sense. I think it's also actually a very good correlation between, like if you eat crappy food, basically your body is busy and your brain is busy in processing all that crap, right? And turning, keeping you still healthy because it's a lot of job to process, all those shitty carbs and bad fat. So basically, your brain doesn't have enough time to, enough space to keep you motivated and keep you productive on other stuff, right? Because you're busy, like your body's busy.
It's very true. And you'll notice when you consume a lot of refined carbs, how are those people's energy levels?
Yeah.
They're not good.
Exactly. And then obviously you're not motivated to do anything. That's why you keep laying on that sofa because you're like, oh, I'm dead. I can't do anything else,
Yeah. And you say, earlier, you're like, man, thank you for responding so fast. Man, buddy, when I get an invitation, boom, accept. Like I accept everything, and then I figure out how the hell I'm going to do everything. But you just got to do it because with all these cool, hacks to your body, you implement these and you feel freaking amazing, and you're able to accomplish feats. The only regret I have is not starting earlier. But I guess I've learned a lot throughout the way, so now I can kind of educate people on, not repeating the same mistakes I did.
Definitely awesome. So that's good. That's a very good transition to our main topic of today, which is intermittent fasting. So I think a lot of our listeners already know what it is, but still, I'm pretty sure there is at least one person who has no idea what it is. So very shortly, what is intermittent fasting?
So with intermittent fasting anything, it's really important to just look at a premise, and that's the state of your body. Your body doesn't want to be in the same state all the time. That's why we have sleeping cycles and wake cycles. That's why we have two parts of our nervous system. We have our fight or flight response when we're stressed out. Then we have our parasympathetic, our relaxed digestion mode. We have these two kind of altering things. That's why we have periods of eating and have periods of not eating. So our body likes to shift states. That's why we have high intensity for short durations and then rest. So your body does not like to be in that same state every time, which is why things like, for example, cold therapy, why exercise is so important, because it gets you out of that normal state you're in, and it gives you a short-term, really healthy stressor that gives you a ton of biochemical benefits. But in terms of fasting, it's the same way. This is a period of not eating. And when you go through periods of not eating, you're giving your body a break to really focus on its energy to actually rid itself of old cellular debris, of boosting brain function, activating neural stem cells, all sorts of cool things. But no one ever really hits these benefits because we're so caught up in all of this dogma we were taught growing up that you just got to eat and graze all throughout the day. Otherwise your blood sugar is going to get low and you're going to, freak out and your stomach's going to start growling. It's just like all that stuff was so dead wrong. And I fell for it big time, to the point where I don't eat for an hour and my stomach's gargling, it was horrible. I had to make sure that I ate before every single test I took in undergrad, because if I didn't, my stomach would be the loudest during that quiet period of test taking and be super embarrassing because I just couldn't handle it. I was such a carb burner. And the thing is, when you're breaking down carbs for energy, you get this big spike in blood sugar and then boom, it's an instant crash. It's not that steady source like fasting can help you get.
Gotcha. So the intermittent fasting is obviously a type of fasting, but what are the characteristics, let's say, of intermittent fasting?
Yeah. So, people can do extended fasts for 24 hours for 1, 2, 3 days. Intermittent fasting is kind of like a shortcut. It's not a replacement for longer term fasts. Longer term fasts definitely still have their place, but in terms of doing something that fits your everyday lifestyle, intermittent fasting works great because you're just talking about restricting your eating window during the day. And that's how I do it. There's different types of intermittent fasts. You can do every other day fasts, where you fast for one day, eat the next day. I don't personally like those necessarily, because when you have too much of this going on in your daily life, it doesn't give you that consistency to really build your lifestyle habits on. Once you start doing something each and every day, your patterns form and you become able to do more things. It becomes habit forming. But when you kind of go like, there's also a 5-2 method where you eat normal for 5 days and then 2 days you fast. But again, it's not creating an everyday consistent pattern to basically model your behavior after. So I find that restricting your eating window each and every day is just a good general thing for people to start doing, assuming like we talked about, they already have their diet under control. But they do that, they restrict their eating window. Now, most people call it the 16-8 method. It's the most popular, right? So 16 hours without eating. The good news is that if you are sleeping properly, you're getting about 8 of those hours are going to be from when you're sleeping. So that's easy. So basically when you're awake, 8 hours are going to be fasting, 8 hours are going to be done eating. And so that's a general way for people to start, and it's fairly easy for most people to kind of get grasp on that. And then once you get there, you can slowly start to narrow your eating window even more.
Oh, really? But okay, so you can even go even less than 8 hours.
Yes, definitely. I mean, I'm about one meal a day for at least 3 to 4 days a week. So
no way. Wow. All right.
Yeah.
And
not necessarily that I recommend that.
Obviously,
but, that's personally my thing, and that's where I notice my mental performance being at its highest. So that's what I do.
Okay, so that gives me a lot of questions.
Yeah.
1 meal a day. Okay, so let's not jump too far. So you start, and actually we also are planning to do this 16-8 method, right? So what I hear mostly is that it's either skipping breakfast or skipping dinner. What would you recommend? Is it skipping breakfast or dinner?
I personally skip breakfast. Mm-hmm. I think dinner is a little bit more important, just because usually there's more social activity involved with dinners. You're eating with your family, for example. Most of the time, people's breakfasts just consist of kind of going on their own, on the go, eating something, and off you go. What you're going to notice is that the benefits of fasting in promoting healthy and really strong mental clarity and brain function, you want to utilize those usually in the first part of your day. And then towards the end of your day, that's when you have dinner and you're able to kind of not veg out, but kind of relaxation before bedtime. So for me, I'm a huge morning person, up at 4 a.m. every single day. And the fasting kind of I can get right to work without the thought of eating, because my body's used to it by now. And it's actually enhances my performance rather than being a hinder. But again, starting out, it's going to be a little tough for most people, because you're going from expecting a meal every single morning to all of a sudden, boom, no more meals anymore. So your body's you've trained your body over and over to expect breakfast every single morning. So when someone like this hears all the benefits of intermittent fasting and they give it a try, and they quit after one day, oh, I was hungry. It's like, well, no shit, you're hungry. It's just like if you quit coffee, yes, you're hungry, but you got to push through a little bit. It is still a change that you got to kind of suffer a little bit of those hunger cravings initially. But if you can basically really push through those challenges in the first week, max 2 weeks, then you're really going to reap a ton of benefits. So you got to put yourself through a little bit of hard work and dedication to really reap all those benefits.
Totally. You answered my question. I wanted to ask, what's the average kind of, that's the hard time. And, 1-2 weeks is actually what we found, because we do all these body and mind challenges together with my wife and our community at our project. We found that for almost anything, first week is obviously the hardest. Second week is usually even a little bit more harder, because after first week, if you didn't quit, the second week is kind of like, okay, this is where it's getting serious, like where the resistance starts really, coming really strong, because, your old habits are kind of being deleted. But then from the third week, everything seems to be just a lot easier, right? So I think for anything in life, if you want to change, is 2 weeks is a lot to ask? 2 or 3 weeks is not, it's not a lot, right? So yeah, do it for a couple of weeks, man. Awesome. So during those 8 hours, so even though it says skipping breakfast and skipping dinner, or skipping dinner, but let's say people choose to skip breakfast. So the first meal is roughly around 12ish, I assume, right? And then a dinner is around 7:30 or something like that. So you finish by 8 p.m.
Yep.
So is it recommended, like, as a first time who never done it, is it recommended to have basically just 2 meals, so lunch and dinner, or you could just have basically 3 meals? So you would maybe have a breakfast at noon, and then at 4 you would have lunch and then dinner later, or what's your advice?
With that, I would say all those questions really requires too much overthinking. Really, it's just listening to your body. Now, for example, if you're going from 3 meals a day, morning, afternoon, and dinner, and then you restrict your eating window to just 12 to 8, most people find that they can't really fit that same 3 meals in that smaller time span. So not only are they narrowing their eating window, but they're also eating less, because it's hard to get that same amount of calories that you're eating all day in a shorter eating window. And so especially with work and things, most of the time you'll have lunch period, but then you're going to be working and staying busy. Most of us don't have just like this extra time just to continually just eat and feast. And so you'll find that most people don't actually do that. Now, if it's like 4 o'clock and you're hungry, then eat. That's totally fine. But it's really important to, the reason why, like, I wrote the book and stuff, I just wanted to make it simple for people, because it's not that complicated. You really do want to listen to your body. And, that's why I do my lifestyle habits, because I get a feedback. If I'm doing something and I get a really good feedback of like mental clarity, then I'll keep doing those things, but I just noticed that really it's not just the wrong question to ask. You still want to listen to your body. All you're doing then is just focusing on narrowing your eating window. So most people are going to be hungry by noon, and then dinner is right there. If it requires a little snack in between those meals, then that's totally fine, but it's not necessary, and most people don't need it.
Yeah. So basically that means just care about eating within the 8 hours window, have the first meal, whatever, at 12, and then listen to your body, like keep the healthy diet, right? Like don't, it doesn't mean that you have to, force that calories, right? Just listen to your body during that 8 hours, and that's all you need to do.
Absolutely.
So this is how you basically ended up eating 1 meal a day, right? So you listen to your body, and somehow one is enough for you now, or what?
Yeah. So it gets slightly more complicated, because this kind of brings in the whole concept of ketosis. And basically, ketosis, I mean, that's another really popular hot topic right now, but it's basically shifting your body's physiology to use more fat as your primary fuel than using carbohydrates, which almost everyone is using if they aren't abiding by this type of diet. So once you're able to get into ketosis and able to effectively use fats for fuel, by the way, the best way to get into ketosis is fasting. But regardless of how you get there, when your body's adapted to using fat for fuel, it makes fasting so easy. Because now when I wake up, my body is so adapted to actually using fat as its primary fuel that when I wake up in the morning, all the way until dinner time, my body still has a steady source of energy. It's just breaking down my fat stores for energy. So I do that about 3 to 4 days a week, just because my mental performance during the first thing in the morning at 4 a.m. all the way till dinner stays strong the entire day. And I find that actually eating in the middle of it kind of breaks my rhythm, and and I actually notice, even regardless of what food, regardless that it slows me down. And so I notice that I can do that. And, and it just happens that Monday through Thursday are my biggest producing days. So I need to be like at the top of my game those days. And I find that I can just go all day. Now, when I say no food, that's not entirely accurate, because I'm consuming some calories in the form of, I call it the bulletproof coffee, but I do brew organic black coffee each morning with about a big tablespoon of medium chain fatty acid powder. I call it MCT oil powder that I put in the blender, as well as about a tablespoon of grass-fed butter. and I also add a little cinnamon, maybe a little cacao, but in that coffee. But I brew about 6 to 8 cups of that, blend it up. I'll put half in my thermos, and then about a quarter of that I'm consuming in the morning. And so throughout the day, I have something that I'm sipping on. The key factor there is that there's absolutely no carbohydrates in there and no protein. So what that means is that there's nothing that's going to actually stimulate inside my body an insulin release. And you look at the benefits of fasting, almost all of them come from keeping insulin low and suppressed. And so this way I'm able to consume a little bit of caffeine, which is a natural mental enhancer, get some easily digestible fats in there, because that can basically gives me precursors to ketones. And so I'm able to kind of have that energy source all day. And I love coffee. So for people who want to do that, make sure it's organic. Coffee is the most highly sprayed pesticide bean. So get organic. I do whole beans because I like to grind it fresh each morning. Do that, and then that's just kind of like my day. So when I go to work, I have 2 big bottles of water in my hydro flask, and then I have a hydro flask where I just keep my leftover bulletproof coffee that I kind of can just sip on through about 3 p.m.
Gotcha. So do you still keep the 8 hours? Like, do you only drink it within the 8 hours, or it gets a bit extended?
I don't worry that part. Yeah, I don't worry
you
about
don't
that.
worry. Yeah.
No, I really don't, because again, I'm not getting any insulin in my body that actually breaks away that fat burning, because nothing breaks away fat burning more than insulin.
So it's really not about the, I'm sorry to interrupt you, because I was always very curious. I heard about this, like you're being kind of allowed to drink the bulletproof coffee, in the morning, like instead of your breakfast kind of. But then, I Googled it, and, Google like how many calories bulletproof coffee has, and then it came around like 400 calories, so because of the fat, obviously, right?
Yep. Yeah, exactly. It's from the butter, and the butter and the MCT oil, because it's pure fat.
All right. So basically, the fasting, what we're talking about here, is not about having 0 calories, right? It's more about what you mentioned, to have zero effect on your insulin levels, right? Like you can still consume something as long as it doesn't increase your insulin levels. Is that correct?
Right.
Or not?
Kind of, because no, it is, because I just wouldn't overdo that premise, because if you go by that, then we can say, can we eat all day just pure fat things? But that's what a ketogenic diet is. But abiding by the ketogenic diet is not fasting. So for me, I'm able to get the benefits, and what research shows that you're able to get the benefits even if you have, a couple tablespoons of a pure fat source, like from the grass-fed butter and from the MCT powder. Able to do that, it just kind of helps you sustain that, but you don't really rid yourself of the benefits of a fast, therefore. And you're going to notice things, and for me, I've noticed it. I've gone from tea, I've gone from just water in the morning, and I just find that I actually perform better, and I feel better, and my physique gets better. So it kind of gives me a direct correlation when I actually am able to have that coffee in the morning. So that's why I do that, but you just don't want to overdo that, because then people can just be consuming a lot of keto foods throughout the whole day, but then you're not fasting, because the whole premise is you're really trying to give your digestive system a break. And people, you hear so many fasts out there, the bone broth fast, the bulletproof fast. There's all these different times of fasting. The answer is that they all work, but really the key portion is the one thing that probably wouldn't work would be like a juice fast, because a juice fast is almost all sugar. In fact, you're making it worse on you, because you're taking away the fiber that actually neutralizes the insulin spike. So it could be good for getting your body some nutrients, but if your goal is to fast and you do a juice fast, then you're completely doing the exact opposite of what you should be doing. But however, I'm not saying that it's not good for you. It could be a good way to get those nutrients and give your digestive system a break. But in terms of getting those fasting benefits, it really comes down to keeping insulin suppressed completely.
Gotcha. So speaking of benefits, actually, we missed a very important part, for somebody who's now listening to the podcast. They heard a lot of information about intermittent fasting, but still, why? So why? And let's try to, maybe nail it down to top 3, let's say, main benefits. So why people should fast in general, and why intermittent fasting is the right choice?
Okay, so fat burning, brain function, and the third one I like to just call being better at life, period. So you really got three there. Let's start with the fat burning. Fat burning, we've known this forever. I studied my biochemistry notes from back in undergrad, and we learned all the same stuff. We know that insulin blocks fat burning. Insulin is a storage hormone. Okay, so anytime we activate insulin, what's it going to want to do? It's going to want to store sugar and fat, as stored fat in your body. Okay, so that's what insulin does, and it's an important hormone. We still need some of that sometimes. So insulin, we all know about what insulin does, and we also know another thing about insulin. Insulin and growth hormone are indirectly related. So you increase insulin, growth hormone secretion goes down. And for those of your audience, growth hormone is your fitness hormone. It helps you look young, it helps you just stay fresh, regenerating your body, healing, growth, repair. It's very, very important, and as you age, growth hormone secretion naturally goes down, but doing things like fasting can keep it revved up for a really, really high period of time. And so insulin is the bad guy. So it only takes a little bit of common sense to utilize a lifestyle intervention that keeps insulin suppressed. That's why fasting is so effective. That's why a ketogenic diet is so effective, because you're actually doing the very thing. And what do we know, especially in America? 2/3 are overweight. 2/3 of every single person in America are overweight. So we obviously know they're storing way too much fat. And what stores the fat? What's the culprit? Insulin. So we got to choose something that keeps insulin down, which is why fasting is so beneficial. So that's fat burning right there. So we know that fat burning is a big one. And really, it's an easy thing to do to keep you nice and lean, because you see a lot of skinny fat people out there who are grazing. They're skinny, but what's there is not muscle. You can grab and it's just all fat, so they're very unhealthy. Their metabolic markers are horrible, but you don't want to necessarily go by your weight. You want to go by your body composition, your lean body mass. And then there's brain function. That's probably my very favorite one, because I'm always trying to produce and manage my office and managing staff. So there's just so much on my plate that the brain function was the most appealing. What I noticed the very first, one of the first benefits I noticed. And one thing about fasting is that it basically regenerates and stimulates your brain function by increasing something called BDNF. It's this little guy called brain-derived neurotrophic factor. It's this molecule in your brain that stimulates stem cell production. So it actually stimulates the production of brand new brain cells, new neuronal connections, new brain connections, synapses, everything. So you're actually, by fasting, you're increasing your stem cells and the amount of brain cells and brain connections in your body. So of course that's going to help upregulate brain function right there. And so that's huge. And that's why I say, and I tell all my patients who get stem cell injections and stem cell IVs for performance and just better function, by say the one thing you can do in your lifestyle is incorporate a fasting regimen as well, because that's going to also stimulate your body's stem cells. So that's really, really important. And then the third one is, when I say better at life, well, fasting doesn't just have to do with those two things. First of all, you talked about how, I remember you mentioning that, when you're eating all day and you're eating carbs, your body's taking up so much energy digesting that. But one of the big reasons why is because carbohydrate metabolism generates about 30 to 40% more free radicals than fat. So if you have way more free radicals that are being produced, your body's using a lot of its energy to manage those free radicals. So if we can cut that management of the energy, away completely and just focus on utilizing fat for fuel, well, now we have 30 to 40% more energy we can use for our body instead of managing the excess free radicals that are produced from, burning carbohydrates. Now, free radicals are really good in normal amounts. Exercise, cold thermogenesis, cryotherapy, fasting, they all can generate healthy amount of free radicals that actually stimulate a lot of good things in our body. But you can also overdo it. And when you just are able to consume carbohydrates, you're generating way too many excess free radicals. Excess free radicals are linked to over 60 different diseases. And the reason is because excess free radicals leads to chronic inflammation, right? So it's a lot of information there, but when you can basically know that every disease is linked to two things, chronic inflammation and insulin resistance, fasting basically takes care of both of those. So you're really going to get better at life, period, because you're increasing the overall performance of your body. The actually two things I notice the most is the fat burning and brain function. So there you have it.
Awesome.
Woo.
Awesome. Yeah, yeah. Thanks for the summary. But I think for anybody who's listening, to this episode is like those last few minutes of you explaining those three benefits. I think that's like the biggest, best summary you could ever get. And what kind of ideas it brings to me, that the very first one is basically, and the second point where you said, the brain health, all it means is, once again, what we discussed is like the healthy body, healthy soul, right? As soon as you fix your diet, once again, your body will have enough energy to give it to your mental, so once your body is healthy, your mental energy, efficiency, productivity, creativity, everything will start kicking at a much higher speed, so that's definitely worth, it's just huge benefits. One thing I would love just quickly mention to the listeners is that I think it's very important also to mention that during those 8 hours, right, you still have to keep the healthy diet, right? So to keep that whole benefits of, keeping the insulin low, right? I mean, you should still keep the carbs low, keep the basically eliminate any added sugar. Is that correct?
Yeah. So it's correct in a sense. Whereas we have something called fruits that are very high in sugar.
True.
So we have things like fruits. We have and there's also a lot of vegetables that are high in sugar, high in carbohydrates. So I'm not saying eliminate those completely, but you really want to go for a period of time where you're full blown in a ketogenic state, in a metabolic state of ketosis. And in order to stay that way, in order to get that way, you do got to go for about 3 days of, when you do eat in that 8-hour window, to just eat foods that are ketogenic in nature. So a ketogenic diet, so the foods that we can consume is a diet high in healthy fats, moderate protein. And when I say moderate protein, that's probably going to be very low protein for most of us because we're used to eating way too much protein. And then very low net carbohydrates. Net carbohydrates are just low carbohydrates. Net carbohydrates is carbs minus fiber. So that's the general premise of what you want to eat for about half of your week, because that's going to maintain your body in that state of ketosis where your body's just burning fat for fuel. But long term, I'm not a big advocate, because we can also get lots of benefits from consuming healthy carbohydrates, things like more of a not cruciferous vegetables, but root vegetables, for example, berries, other types of fruit. I love nectarines. Just things like that are still healthy, but you don't want to do that all day and all week. You want to basically do it in a cyclical fashion. And a lot of this stuff is just like what our ancestors did. They alternated periods from feast and famine. They would go days without eating, and they would go days to feasting. Certain fruits and vegetables were in season at some time, some were in season at a different time. And so it's not eating the same stuff all the time, every single day. You're kind of breaking that out. So how I personally do it is I increase more of a healthy carbohydrate intake during the latter half of my week. And that's also the time where I increase my training intensity. So I do like to increase my healthy carbohydrate intake from fruits and vegetables when I do a more of an intense training as well. So the first 3 to 4 days of the week, I'm just all producing. Mental performance is what I need for my job. I'm still working out, but not very high intensity. Towards the latter half is when I work out a lot harder intensity, where I add in my sprints, such as things like that. And then I add, things from like berries, calories from berries, which are high in carbohydrates, bananas, etc., sweet potatoes. You get the picture. So.
Gotcha. Yeah. So is it it leads me to the next question I had, like that, the way we operated, we do these 21-day challenges, and then after 21 days, people usually have the springboard of like, do they want to continue or not, certain habit, kind of introducing a new one or eliminated the bad one. So in terms of intermittent fasting, so you live now the lifestyle where you fast 3 or 4 days, right? You said per week, kind of more intense with the one meal
Yeah, so I do the fasting every single day without fail. Yeah. I've never been a breakfast person. Well, I mean, back in the day I was, but so I still don't eat first thing in the morning, regardless, even if I'm on the weekends. I may eat a little earlier than that, but almost for about 3 to 4 days, I do the one meal. Then the other ones, I'm eating more of like the 16/8 method, where I have more freedom, because I am human overall, and I do like to have fun and do other things as well, social events. And so eating and, drinking your occasional adult beverage, that's kind of part of having a social life, at least in my mind and my lifestyle. And so, I still do all of that to moderation and to kind of fill everything out. But I do the fasting every single day.
Gotcha. But obviously you're more advanced, right? So you've been doing this for how many years or months?
We're looking at 6 years now.
Wow,
it's crazy.
6 years.
Yeah,
Wow, so that's a lot of experience. Yeah. All right, so definitely, you're 6 years, but somebody who's just starting out, what's your advice? Is it like just do 7 days a week straight, or you have a couple of cheat days?
I would, the cheat days are tough because cheat days, you're kind of going against both points. Remember, you're going against your foundational point, whereas you're going against your diet. Cheat days, it depends on what your cheat day definition really means. Is it adding like some more fruits? Because you can have fantastic types of like, desserts in the form of like a high amount of cacao percentage of a chocolate bar, or fruit smoothie. You can have things like that could be considered, cheat day, or you can have just full on, cakes and muffins. And so there's a distinction with that. Really, there's no place of a healthy diet in terms of just junk food. You can't even pronounce half of the ingredients. And so I would not recommend that stuff. But in terms of starting out, I would just say, if you're eating first thing in the morning and you're really eating and grazing throughout the day, which most people do, start by just going the first couple hours in the morning without eating. So maybe instead of the 16/8 method, you're doing more of like the, the 12/12 method. Okay. Where you're now eating for only 12 hours a day instead of a longer period. And once you can do that, then go down to narrowing your window to 11 hours and 10 hours. But, I would really consider doing it every day, and especially and I love what you're doing, that 21-day challenge, because it creates habits. When we're able to have this freedom to go off a couple days and go back on, it makes your Monday like pretty much hell, because you've gone all weekend now going off and doing everything you want to do and eating like crap, and all of a sudden, boom, you're back to this lifestyle. Not only do you have to go back to work, but now you're trying to abide by this brand new, eating regimen. And so it really doesn't create a whole long-term success in my experience.
Yeah. No, it makes sense. All right, we're gonna do it this way every day or nothing. It's the same advice like I've got from another podcast guest about doing the cold showers, right? And actually, ever since I heard this, I've been taking the cold showers. Is that he said, there's no such thing as gradually reducing the water temperature. If you want to do cold showers, just go to the coldest setting on the first day, and that's obviously it's gonna be tough, and it was tough the first week, but like we discussed before, the change always is hard. Oh, awesome.
How good do you feel afterwards, right?
Awesome, exactly. It's just adrenaline. Now I'm like, I must say the showers became shorter. It's not like I'm enjoying this super cold. Like I am enjoying, but obviously my body still says, come on, get out of it here. But after I finish the shower, what's funny is that I actually want to come back. I want to go back, because that adrenaline is just something.
And like
different.
It opens up your brain. I mean, the beauty about that, doing it in the morning, is that you're guaranteed to get the worst part of your day. You're getting that done in the morning, and then all you have to look forward to after that is just awesomeness. With that. High in mental clarity. So.
What I call it is just like you start your morning with a slap in the face, that they're like, come on, man, do your best you can today, Yeah.
But that feeling you get afterwards, and that collagen synthesis, that brown fat, that mitochondrial biogenesis, it's huge. And you notice it right away. That's one of the cool things about that, is that you notice the benefits the first time you do it. Yeah, it sucks being and shivering under a cold, stream of water in your face. But afterwards, you're like, wow, this is something.
It's true. I think after meditation is one of the easiest life hacks you could implement, like tomorrow, today, so easy. Okay, maybe one of the more important questions are, how quick can people basically expect the positive effects to start kicking in?
So that, unfortunately, there's not like a single answer that's going to satisfy everybody, because it really depends on how healthy they are already going into it. Are they already having the clean diet for a while? Because when you have a clean diet, that your body's used to eating for a while, it makes the transition to fasting and going without meals that much easier. That's why it's so easy for me to only do one meal a day. And literally, it's not a challenge. I'm not ever thinking about eating during that period. So it really depends on, if someone's coming from a very unhealthy lifestyle, then it's going to be a little bit of challenge to getting that transition down from burning carbs as your primary fuel to burning fat. That transition can take longer or shorter depending on how healthy you are going into this new lifestyle intervention. So I would say you got to go through that first, what's cool is that you're doing the 21-day challenge. For most people, that kind of like hunger cravings, that period of kind of feeling like lethargic because you're not giving your body the carbs, but you're not quite ramping up your fat metabolism yet. So you're kind of going at this deficit. That takes about a week. I would say average is 10 days where you're kind of going through that transition. Average. Some people longer, some people shorter, but on average, you can expect like you got to go through this about week transition period, and then but it's worth it. It's like you work out for the first time, you're going to be sore. It doesn't just all of a sudden, boom, you get benefits and you get a 6-pack right away. It's a process, Yeah. I mean, we all do, but with fasting, you do start to notice the results pretty quickly. When I say quickly, within a couple weeks, but you got to go through that little hump first. And that's where the bulletproof coffee, or, you can put some butter in your tea. That's why things like that in the morning can be just a little something to kind of give your brain that energy to get through it.
Mm-hmm, mm-hmm. Makes sense. It makes a lot of sense. Thanks, Mike. Michael or Mike. Yeah. Thanks a lot. A lot of I think practical information, and that's what I love, and I hope that's what our listeners love. Is that I think a lot of information, what you shared with us today, can be used tomorrow. People can use this information to make their lives better, and I hope at least one person who's listening to this will start. We'll implement. We'll try at least intermittent fasting, and just live a healthier lifestyle.
Yeah, and it's gonna create, you're gonna get those results, and then those results are gonna inspire you to do more, just like it did for me. So, I throw in a couple 24 to 48 hour fasts here and there, a couple times a month, just to re-stimulate my body and rid itself of a process called autophagy, cleaning out all the crap in your body. Yeah. Just a really good way to purge cancer cells to get to your highest potential, highest functioning person you want to be. And then, like you said, everything else then is easier. Mental clarity, meditation, whatever it is you want to do, relationships, everything gets better the better you feel and the better you're able to have this energy and utilize as much as as possible. So it's really, really cool.
Awesome. So thanks so much. I think we can wrap up here. What is the best way to contact you, for people who would love to get in touch?
Yeah, I'm very active on my Dr. Michael Van der Sheldon Facebook page, my Instagram account, Dr. Michael Van. I'm sure you'll share those in the show notes. YouTube for sure. My website's going to basically be a central hub for everything. It's just going to be drmichaelvan.com. It should be done with the development phase within the next couple of weeks, so that will be live. So be on the lookout for that. And then also checking out the book, Scientific Approach to Intermittent Fasting. At the time I wrote this, it took me about a year to write. And this was when I was working 12-hour days. So the only way I could do that is wake up at 3 a.m. and from 3 to 5 a.m., I would have a 2-hour period each day to do my writing in complete quiet. But if I wasn't fasting at that time and experiencing the brain function that I did, I wouldn't even be able to write that book, period. So that kind of goes over all the concepts that anyone can understand. It's very written for the lay person, so they can understand what's going on in your body. And when you understand the benefits that are going on, it's easier to implement, and it gives you more motivation to really go and abide by something like that.
All right, that's a hustle. That's a true hustle for sure. Everybody, I think it's a great book. I just ordered the Kindle version a couple of days ago, so everybody will put the link in the show notes. Thank you so much, Michael. I wish you all the best, and just thank you.
Yeah, absolutely. If you ever have any questions, you need resources, you need any help with the 21-day challenge, ways to go with it. I'm always there on email, so feel free to reach out to me and I'll help you out as much as I can.
Hey guys, thank you so much for sticking around. I hope you enjoyed this episode and learned something new that you could implement in your life as soon as possible. And you can find the show notes of this episode simply by going to hustleduo.com/Michael. You'll find everything, the resources he mentioned, and all the links to the show. And of course, don't forget to check out our 21-day body and mind challenges, particularly intermittent fasting challenge. We will start live in April, but you can start anytime, any day. So just check that out. I hope you like it. So thank you so much for listening again. I really appreciate that, and catch you later, folks.